Let's try
That's some music right there.
this
Look
one.
at that.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
yeah. We bump
Come
beats.
on.
We bump beats for the strategy
Come
show
on.
this
Yeah.
lovely
Let's
December
go.
6th. Thursday, guys. 3-game slate. A little bit different than last night's monster, where everybody just went ham. Fluffy, how'd your night shake out?
Not bad, man. Not bad. I told you I play hockey on Wednesdays. We went to double overtime in a playoff game, a men's league playoff game. Double overtime, 15-minute periods. I got home around midnight from a men's roller hockey game. So, yeah, I play ice hockey. I play some roller hockey. Not going to lie. Every year older I get, I prefer roller hockey a lot more, dude.
I'm sure.
Yeah, people can say whatever the hell they want. I don't care. It's an enjoyable time. It's my weekly exercise. But I didn't expect it to go, 5 periods in on a Wednesday night. But I know you weren't asking about that. Basketball was good. I ended up, from an ownership standpoint, getting on a little bit of Russell Westbrook, which helped. But I had some Giannis too, and that didn't help. So basically, it was all of my Westbrook lineups did really well because they all included like John Collins and Porter and Satoransky and such and Randall, and then the ones with Giannis didn't because they included Giannis. The one the one guy that so it was a perfectly fine night. The one guy though that kept things from being actually really solid was definitely Trae Young. Everyone else, I feel like, from that game that I was targeting, whether it be Rivers, he was fine. I know you had a bunch of Rivers.
I did.
Oubre, Porter, Beal, John Collins, Bazemore had 44. All of those guys. Dedmon, I forget what Dedmon finished with, but it was definitely the biggest disaster from that game. You would agree, unquestionably, in terms of who people were actually playing, was Trae Young.
Oh, of course. Not great.
Everyone else actually paid off, which is amazing that's the thing, man. Wizards and Hawks, no matter how bad that game is, no matter how bad that game is in real life, we got what we needed from it. Even Dedmon had 10, 8, 1, and 2, which
got hurt,
that's
right?
not killing you at that yet. Wait, what?
He got hurt, right?
I think so, yeah. He played 22 minutes.
I mean, he's a permanent monster.
Yeah, I mean, what, 25 fantasy points in, or 25 in 22 minutes? You could do worse than that, and you get everyone else in your lineup. So it was, dude, Trae Young, in all seriousness, as even though he has a high ceiling, and we've seen him with a high ceiling, this dude's shooting's been atrocious. He shot 4 for 13 again, 6 turnovers to 5 assists, Josh.
How bad do you think the Hawks want Luka Doncic right now?
Isn't that the truth, dude? Isn't that? I mean,
although I guess if they end up with Zion or something, well, I guess they won't because that pick is protected top something or other, 8 maybe. Can't remember.
But all I know is that they are what? They're 5-20. The Suns are 4-20. The Bulls are 5-20. The Cavs are 5-19. The Nets are 8-18. The Knicks are 8-17. The Heat are 9-14. I bring that up because in the West, the Suns are the only team in the entire conference that doesn't have at least 11 wins. And the 14th team in the West is a half a game out of a playoff spot right now.
Wow.
Or I'm sorry, 1 game out of a playoff spot. Pretty amazing.
I don't even know what that Dallas pick is because Dallas is in the playoffs right now.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's crazy, isn't it? I was looking at this the other day. Right, if the playoffs started today, 5 teams in the West that made the playoffs last year would not make it this year. The Spurs, the Rockets, the Jazz, the Pelicans, and the Timberwolves would all not make it if the playoffs ended today.
It's insane. The lottery right now is hilarious.
Yeah, it's crazy. Crazy.
Meanwhile, if Sacramento starts losing, the odds of that Sacramento pick going to Boston or Philly, that is going to be the most interesting story in basketball.
Oh, what? Sure would be.
The odds that
I think
one of those
Kings will be all right, though.
Yeah, they'll be fine. You know, I figured they're not going to make the playoffs, so I figure they finish like 10th or so, which will be like, I don't know, like a 10% chance that one of Philly or Boston gets a top 4 pick in this draft. It's hilarious.
Yeah, you know, you bring up a decent point, though, because they're 9th right now. They're actually tied with the Mavericks. So let's just say they're 8th, you know, just for argument's sake. It's very, very difficult to see them finishing ahead of the Timberwolves or the Pelicans
or the Jazz, or the Rockets.
Maybe the Jazz. Yeah, definitely not the Rockets. I could honestly see them finishing ahead of the Spurs. That's how bad. Spurs will not make the playoffs.
No.
Unless something changes dramatically, they won't. But yeah, that's a good point, because the Grizzlies, Marc Gasol is a good enough player. And then when Mike Conley's healthy and Jaren Jackson's not in foul trouble, that's not a bad basketball team. They won't win a playoff series, but they're not a bad team either. So the West isn't as dominant in terms of being top heavy as it was in the past, but there's no question that things are going to get mixed up pretty heavily, and the Suns are just going to continue. That game the other night, they scored 9 points in the first quarter. 9 points in the first quarter, Josh.
Dreadful.
Oh my God, this team's really, really bad. And where we get value with bad teams like the Wizards, or we get value with bad teams even like the Hawks, it's hard to even get value with the Suns because of how atrocious they are right now.
You were talking about the Spurs before. 538 has their updated playoff odds and projections every day. Spurs have a 2% chance to make the playoffs. They're projecting their record at 32-50.
Amazing, isn't it? This was the team that for the past couple decades was like that special. Everyone wanted, before the Warriors, everyone wanted to model themselves after the Spurs.
Yeah. Yeah, they're just doing all the wrong things now, and they don't seem to be learning from that. They actually have the Kings at 32-50 as well, tied. So that would put the Kings at, I want to make sure I get the right rankings. They have the Kings being 8th, which would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that would be a 5. If you have the 8th worst odds going into the lottery, that's a 5% chance of getting the first pick. Basically, a 6% chance for 2 or 3 or 4. So that's where
you're saying they're projected to finish as the 8th worst record?
Yes.
Okay.
That
seems about right.
Which would make the chances of them finishing with Boston or Philly getting that pick being like pretty tasty.
And it also, by the way, probably means that 538 has them projected to finish like ahead of 6 Eastern teams and maybe ahead of only one Western team or 2 Western teams.
5 Eastern teams, 2 West. Good call.
Yeah,
Hawks, Bulls, Cavs, Knicks, Nets, and then they would be a game ahead of the Heat.
Yeah, that's right.
And then Spurs and Suns, obviously.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So I desperately want I want the Kings to jump into the lottery, because that, like 10 minutes before they unveil those first 4 picks, trying to figure out if that pick is going to Boston or Philly, it would be bonkers.
Amazing, wouldn't it?
Bonkers. I love it.
But we got Phoenix on the schedule today, and
yeah,
it was 3 games, right? And this is, just to be completely upfront, this is not a good one.
No.
Now, DraftKings has the 400K big jam with 100K to first. So
it seems like a good day to run that tournament.
Yeah, right. Seems a bit unnecessary, but it'll fill, of course. And you have the 400K Thursday shot machine on FanDuel. So it's not like there's no shortage of big contests. You know, that's also 100K to first, by the way.
Yeah.
So you're going to have monster contests, but there's no questioning that Boston, New York, Phoenix, Portland, and this game's in Portland. I haven't looked at the spread yet, but if I had to guess, even though Portland's been terrible, this game has to have a 13-point spread or higher. Like, I would be shocked if it didn't.
13 on the dot.
Look, are you serious?
Yeah, I swear to
Are you
God.
serious?
I mean, it's 13 in my sheet right now.
That's beautiful. That's
Congrats.
beautiful. I haven't looked.
Not
And
the only 13-point line on this day.
Boston's. I was going to say Boston's got to be a double-digit favorite.
13 on the dot.
I'm going to pull it up now.
I mean, they could have.
So,
we could have swung like a hook or something. Since I entered these, I entered them at like 6:30 in the morning. So
I'm sorry.
But
No,
I don't get the sense that the line moves all that much from 6:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
I have Portland at 13.5, Boston at 13.
Yeah.
And then Utah by 2 against Houston. We don't have a total over 218. But yeah, you have two teams that are favored by 13 points. So that doesn't exactly add to the enthusiasm when it comes to how this slate's going to break down, because I think probably the biggest edge, and the problem is I don't even know how much of an edge it is, but the biggest edge you would have in this slate is playing for the blowout in some of your lineups and hoping that it pans out, because otherwise we're just going to have such a ridiculous amount of overlap.
It's ugly, man. It is so ugly. Yeah. There's nothing to like. Literally nothing. I see none of these spots as like trustworthy.
No, my initial crunch, like I'll just give you my highest projected lineup to start. It has guys like, it has DeAndre Melton.
Oh yeah.
And Al Horford and Mikal Bridges. Bridges has been dog shit, Josh. Like, this dude's been bad, flat out bad. I understand he's getting minutes, and for that reason, you'll have to play a bit of him because you don't need a huge game. But his shooting's been terrible.
Here's one for you. I'm gonna read off his last like 8 or so. 3 for 12. Not good.
Oh yeah, he had. I know. I'll let you read it up, but I know that he had a stretch of, I think, 5 games where he made exactly 1 shot.
Yeah, that's where I was going with this. Then he went 4 for 8, and then it was 1 for 5, 1 for 3, 1 for 6, 1 for 8, 1 for 2.
Yeah, it's crazy, dude. Crazy.
I can do that.
Yep. What do you think his EFG is on the year, effective field goal percentage?
Oh my god. Something in the 40s?
Yeah, it's 49%.
Yeah.
And I bet if you were to...
I couldn't say 50. I was just like, there's no way.
No. And I think if you were to start, like, if you were to say what's his EFG since the start of November, because he wasn't terrible, I don't think, in the middle, for the start of the year, it might not be as bad, but Mikal Bridges has very much struggled. No question about it. Let's see. I wonder if the EFG, who's dead last in the league?
Trae Young?
Right. Probably. Dude, his is actually really bad too. If I sort it by, you'd have to sort it by 20 plus minutes per game, because otherwise we just get a lot of craziness.
Yeah.
But my guess is that the way that he's shot, he's very much towards the bottom.
If I can get to it on cleaning the glass.
So he's not last, but he's pretty bad. He's around...
Jose Calderon at 25% in 121 minutes. Jonathan Simmons, 35.7 in 486 minutes.
Bridges is 207, ranked 272. He's tied with Jabari Parker and Josh Richardson, by the way, in EFG.
Who else is atrocious? Frankie Smokes. Who's the first like good player?
Joel Embiid at 49%.
Really?
But that's because, well, here's why. EFG factors in 3-point shooting, and he's got to stop taking 3-pointers.
Yes, he does.
True shooting is going to be a lot different because it factors in free throw shooting. Where's
Trae Young is like he's at 42.6 in 725 minutes. That's the most minutes of anyone near the bottom. Lou Williams really low. Austin Rivers. Josh Jackson.
Jonathan Simmons, as you mentioned, is really bad.
Yeah, that would be the leader in the clubhouse for me in 486 minutes, 35.7. Yep. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. 35.7. He's
The
shooting
worst
22.4% from three.
Wow. Your worst true shooting mark, I'm not including Chris Dunn or Jared Terrell or Lauri Markkanen, is also Jonathan Simmons.
Oh my god.
And to nobody's surprise, Frank Ntilikina.
No, not so much. LaMarcus Aldridge in 844 minutes, 45.4. That's
Jeez.
what's wrong, man? What is wrong?
A lot of Boston players and Brooklyn players down here. Brooklyn's no surprise, but like Jaylen Brown and Terry Rozier, really bad.
Marc Gasol being at 52 is kind of crazy to me.
For true shooting?
Effective field goal percentage.
Oh, effective.
He's been really bad from two, but he's shooting 40% from three.
Isn't that crazy?
What a world.
Jeez.
You want to talk about this slate?
No, but let's do it.
Alrighty. As usual, this normal strategy show, we're going to go game by game. No Thrive props today, but we are brought to you by Thrive Fantasy. So if you're interested in checking out Thrive Fantasy, go to bit.ly/Thrive Strat. I'll drop that link in the chat right now. It's fun, man. I like Adam and I were talking yesterday. I like the idea of like playing with props and trying to turn this into like a big math problem.
I like it quite a bit as well. Absolutely. And you use your projections to guide you there. Use your knowledge of basketball. I've always said I think basketball props are one of the most beatable things when it comes to sports betting.
Yeah.
Because they're not as sharp as like football props are just a lot more popular.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously with Thrive Fantasy, yes, they have basketball specific tournaments and everything, but there are a lot of, if you look through these props, there are a lot of them where just based on the game or based on the pace or based on somebody being out, gives you a legitimate edge there. And especially given that you get to pick which ones, right? I'm not allowed to play for some reason. I'm restricted in PA.
Yeah, you pick. There's like a list. Let's say there's a list of 20. You can pick your favorite 10, and then you can pick 2 backups to get put in if a guy doesn't play at all.
Right.
Which I think is pretty cool.
Which is cool.
Yeah. All right, let's get into this. Boston Celtics hosting the New York Knicks. 115.5 implied total for the Celtics. 102.5 for the Knicks. Kyrie Irving is pretty popular today. He is the chalk play on FanDuel, and he's chalky on DraftKings, but only 8th. 9K on both sites. I totally get it. Point guard is kind of a mess, at least on FanDuel specifically, where you got to get 2 of them, and there's really only 7 options, and all of them are legitimate in some way. So I like Kyrie here, but 48% expected ownership. If Kyrie is in half of the lineups, I really don't know what to do. What do you think about Kyrie tonight here against the Knicks?
No, I definitely like him. The one big thing is James Harden's price has come down a lot. On DraftKings, he's 10.8. On FanDuel, he's 11.4. We'll get to that later, but I need to kind of preface it with this because on a 3-game slate and sites, you'll see these like matchup-based pricing, the dynamic salary based on who they're playing and stuff. So you're seeing that like on DraftKings at 10.8. He was 11.9 just the other day. Granted, Harden came back, but still, or Chris Paul came back. But James Harden, to me, at that price on a 3-game slate, still prompts me to consider him, more than I ever would if there were more games on this slate. And the reason for that is the Utah Jazz. And look, their defense hasn't been awful, but it also isn't even remotely close to what it was a season ago.
Nope.
They are not the same. They're not the same team defensively, and you could make so many different cases for why that is. They're also playing at the 18th fastest or 12th slowest pace, however you want to say it, based on or over the last month. So, point just being that Harden on this short slate is not nearly as bad a play as you would think he would be on a bigger slate, and as he probably would be. The reason I say all of that is because if Dame Lillard is super popular and you don't want to play both of them, or Kyrie Irving is super popular, Dame is also in a good spot. But if Kyrie Irving's super popular, then and people are not playing as much Harden because Chris Paul is back and no one wants to play him in that case, then if you were to ask me which one of these guys do I prefer, it would be James Harden here, just based on a ceiling perspective, and a floor perspective, because I think there will be enough value, believe it or not, on this slate to where it doesn't really matter how much you spend. But at the same time, on DraftKings right now, we have Harden projected for about 5% more ownership than Irving. So they're pretty I think they'll fall in pretty similar at the end of the day.
Yeah, they're similar on FanDuel as well. Obviously, different sort of positional setup. The reason that I like Irving tonight is that if you're going up to Dame, who I think is comparable to Irving tonight, it's an extra $1,500, and if you're spending that extra $1,500, it makes it a lot harder to go to Harden, who's the only other guy in 5 figures on FanDuel. So I think the Irving Harden pairing will be hella popular. So maybe just getting away from that specific combination will be all you need to do to be unique.
And look, Chris, we'll get to that game, of course, but Chris Paul is on DraftKings $7,700. So there are ways to do things. He's 81 on FanDuel. Mind you, this is one of these slates where you're going to make lineups, and certain players, you don't love them, but you're doing it just simply to get away from entering the same lineup as 1,000 other people.
If you make a lineup today that you like, congratulations.
Right, pretty much, yeah. yeah, because it's probably going to have like Melton in it, which is just insane. And honestly,
Evan Turner.
Now we even lose the clarity on that, because Elie Okobo didn't start the second half of last game. Melton started over him because he looked so bad. But then because it was such a massive blowout, you have no idea what the actual situation is, what Kokosko's going to do here. Melton played 23 minutes and Okobo played 26. I know I'm jumping around. I'm just really trying to point out how sketchy this entire slate is. Hopefully we'll get some information early on what the lineup looks like, but I'm not even sure it matters.
Yeah,
so coming full circle here, Josh, I do think Irving is a really good play. Yes, this game will likely blow out, but that's probably a risk you have to take. Can you get away from him? You can literally get away from any player. You can't name a player on this slate that you can't get away from.
But
I do like Irving.
Yeah, so do I. I'll be right there with the field. I don't really see a way around it, and I would rather just rotate through all of the other potential options at point guard. I'm like pretty heavily under the field on Dame, which I guess we'll get to in a bit. There's going to just be some lines that need to be drawn in the sand. So I'm over on Irving. I'm a little bit over on Horford, Tatum, Gordon Hayward, and not so much on Marcus Morris or Terry Rozier. Rozier at 3,700 on FanDuel is basically just a punt play for you, and you hope that he plays in the blowout if the blowout is a blowout.
Yeah, and that's one of the guys that we're talking about earlier that you might want to try and kind of play in some spots for a blowout. I say all the time, I'm not in the business of projecting blowouts. It generally doesn't work well for you. Teams will surprise you, and games might end with a final score that's separated by 15 points, but it was competitive up through 3.5 quarters, so all of the minutes are the same. You see it with the Warriors all the time. And you see it with a lot of these teams. Now that Jaylen Brown's not even on the injury report, so that backcourt becomes crowded again.
Yep.
And guys like Marcus Smart, who would have been a very solid value play had Brown not been back, because in close games you had Smart playing a lot of minutes. Now you don't really have all of that. You're just rolling the dice and hoping that one of these guys pays off. And if it's between Rozier and Smart for me, I will go Rozier. When Jaylen Brown is out, I want Smart. because Terry Rozier needs that massive usage bump with a guy. You need Irving out for Rozier to give you the points and the minutes that you need. Kind of something I've been stressing all season with Irving. But if someone like Irving is out, then you want Terry Rozier. And if this game blows out, then that means that Rozier will be on the court ahead of Irving. And
yeah, so like don't play Kyrie and Terry Rozier in lineups together.
Exactly.
And don't play Marcus Smart and Jaylen Brown in lineups together.
Exactly.
Essentially. Like, that's more of a DK statement than a FanDuel statement. You can play Kyrie Irving and Terry Rozier together on FanDuel in the sense that Terry Rozier is $3,700 and you don't necessarily mind if Rozier bombs at 3,700 if you have Kyrie with him.
Correct. Yeah. On DraftKings, it's definitely different. You don't get to drop a player.
Right. Chalkiest guy on DraftKings tonight right now on Boston, Al Horford, 39%.
That's how you know it's a bad slate.
That's a good way to say it.
That's how you know it's a bad slate. I'll tell you this much, though. Gordon Hayward's easily coming off his best game of the year. He had 39 and 8, 30 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists. Spectacular game in 30 minutes for Hayward. They've won 3 straight now. Maybe he's finally coming to life.
I think it's because of Jaylen Brown being out.
It's possible.
I don't mean that as like an indictment to Jaylen Brown, but they've been having. I listen to too much fucking Bill Simmons, man. Their lineups with Jaylen Brown, like just something wasn't fitting right. And by getting Marcus Smart into the starting lineup instead of Jaylen Brown, it changes the dynamic of that lineup and allows people to sort of have the role that they're fit for.
Definitely an interesting idea.
Yeah. So I'm anxious to see how. Look, that could all just be hooey, but they need Jaylen Brown to be good so they can trade him for Anthony Davis in 6 months.
Yeah, right. I'm sure that'll be a solid 1-for-1 trade there.
Yeah.
Looking at the negative, at their worst net rating lineups. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of the 5 worst have Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, he hasn't been good this year. I think he's probably affected the most by having Hayward and, to a lesser extent, Kyrie back.
Yeah, it's possible. Actually, looking at those minutes, I was trying to see how many minutes have they played together.
Their number one lineup, 294 possessions. Irving, Brown, Hayward, Tatum, Horford, minus 3.4. A 93.5 offensive rating. That is terrible. They've been fantastic defensively. They cannot score.
Yeah, it makes sense.
They don't get to the line. They can't get an offensive rebound. They basically just come down, take one shot, and miss.
Right. And we were talking about EFG earlier today. It's funny because Boston is like overloaded with defense, but then outside of Irving, they don't really have any guys that offensively can just produce every night. And Gordon Hayward certainly hasn't been that guy either. Terry Rozier's got a bottom 20 EFG this year. Marcus Smart's effective field goal percentage last year was 54%. This year it's 44%. He's shooting 25% from 3. Last year he shot 40% from 3. He's shooting 39% from the field. Last year it was 46.5%. So these are definitely big deal. And he's attempting 1 less free throw per game, only 2.5. That's not good. Mm-mm. And he has a 20% usage rate, which you might say isn't high, and it's not. But a 20% usage rate for a guy that's been so immensely ineffective as a shooter doesn't help the team.
What's your favorite play coming out of Boston for DK today?
Favorite play in Boston? Well, you've got Horford at 6,200. I definitely understand it. It makes sense. It does. I think, though, Kyrie is obviously the top option here. But if we're actually looking a little bit further into which one of these non-high tier, non-Kyrie players it is, I'm going to go with Gordon Hayward.
Okay.
Because here's why. Gordon Hayward, if let's assume that he is actually finally rounding back into form and that this wasn't a flash in the pan. I'm not saying he's going to consistently drop 39 and 8, but
Oh,
let's
that's what I
assume
thought
that
you
he's
were
rounding
saying.
in. Yeah, okay. Let's assume that he's turned a corner.
Okay.
If that's the case, then he's still underpriced. And on a 3-game slate, if you're looking for somebody that can post big numbers that we know in the past has been very good offensively as a scorer and a facilitator, your guy is Gordon Hayward there. So, yeah, and plus I'm not too fond of paying on DraftKings $7,100 for Jason Tatum.
No, I'm with you. Hayward and Kyrie, I got in over 50% of my lineups on FanDuel on my first crunch. They are the only guys above 40. So if I were choosing between the two, I would say that Hayward would be my play. He's got less expected ownership and similar exposure for me, 6,400. You got to play two small forwards on FanDuel, one way or the other. And the list of eligible guys reads like this: Hayward, Jingles, Ariza, Crowder, Bridges, Turner, Harkless, Ennis, O'Neal, Clark, Hazonia. Whew.
That's hardly encouraging.
That's, oh my god. That is just, what was the over under the amount of all-star games that entire group makes for the rest of their career? We'll set it at a half. Is it Hayward at 1? Oh my god.
Yeah, probably a half.
That is bad, man. That is bad. The only guy that I have with a potential ceiling game above 40 is Hayward at 46. Everybody else is 38 or under.
Oh god. By the way, I was looking up Gordon Hayward because we had a good question in chat in Slack. Basically, would you play Hayward and Irving together? Normally, I wouldn't. Normally, that's not a spot that I'm looking for. But on a slate like this, you may just have to bite the bullet.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, though. This is why it's a very good question. Hayward with Irving on the court this year, 17.7% usage rate, 14.7% assist rate, and 0.91 fantasy points per minute. Not good, and pretty not good. With Irving off the court, 21% usage, still not supreme, but still 4.4% boost, 27% assist rate, so 13% hike in assist rate, and 1.09 fantasy points per minute, so a 0.18 boost there. Gordon Hayward without Kyrie Irving has definitely factored into him being better. And I just wanted to see quickly, last game, how many minutes did he play with Irving off the court? Because I'm starting to wonder. Now, I understand, too, that Brown was out, but I'm curious to see if we're going to see them staggered at all. And Gordon Hayward played 13 of his 30 minutes with Irving off the court. So, interesting.
Do you have any?
And by the way, in that game, 1.61 fantasy points per minute with 28% usage.
Can't beat that.
Nope.
Anybody from the Knicks jumping out at you as a lovely play? I've got
yeah,
two.
dude, everyone.
I've got two.
Well, you know what? Why don't you go ahead and go first?
Okay.
Since you've already got them loaded in the hopper.
Now, both of these guys are priced better on FanDuel, so let me give that caveat right away. Two guys I'm getting the most of from New York, and it's a lot. And I really, outside of having a decent, like half of the field of Tim Hardaway, who's clearly not one of those two guys, I only basically have two Knicks. Emmanuel Mudiay,
Okay.
It's 5,700 on FanDuel, 5,700 on DK, so a better price on FanDuel. And then Noah Vonleh, 5,000 on FanDuel, 5,100 on DraftKings. Those are the two guys I'm getting the most. Mudiay, in particular, seems to be the most egregious play on my end coming from an ownership perspective. We're only projecting 17%, but, no Trey Burke. So at the very least, you would think Mudiay's minutes are somewhat safe. I'll never trust anything coming out of New York right now, but I've got him in for 32 minutes right now. And if that's the case, he's probably, like, as weird as this sounds, maybe the best combination of price and value at point guard on FanDuel, and I am not really comfortable with what I just said.
I wouldn't be either, man. I'm only coming up. The only one that I'm getting a lot of right now is Tim Hardaway, and this is on DraftKings.
Yeah, his price is a lot better on DK. He's also 33% expected ownership.
Exactly. So, I mean, there's obvious reason that at 6,600, Tim Hardaway's popping.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense. That doesn't mean I feel good about it at all.
No.
It's funny. My initial crunches are actually coming very, very close to what our ownership projections have right now.
There you go.
So that'll be interesting.
You're fish like the public.
Right. That's the thing. I don't want it to be coming up. Well, I mean, hey, those are just the initial projections.
Yeah.
There's no point of playing today if you're just gonna. This is one of these slates where the chalk is not going to be good chalk.
No.
Seriously, think about that. It's not like yesterday where there was good chalk across the board, and there was a lot of good chalk yesterday. Guys that I personally wasn't willing to fade because I'd rather die playing some of the chalk than not. And I don't normally feel that way, but with guys like Julius Randle, I don't care. Like, I'm playing Julius Randle, you know,
or Satoransky, or
playing
Rivers,
Satoransky.
whatever. It's. I don't like playing chalk when guys are priced where they're supposed to be.
Exactly, and they weren't. Otto Porter in that spot was too cheap. Even Bradley Beal was reasonably priced. John Collins, Kent Bazemore was too cheap since he's in the starting lineup.
Yep.
That was good chalk. And oddly, some of those guys weren't even chalk, but you get the point. With this, Emmanuel Mudiay and Tim Hardaway, assuming that Hardaway is this much higher owned than Mudiay, and right now we're getting him expected way higher.
Yeah.
Like, I will just play more Mudiay than Hardaway.
Yep. Because
Mudiay's played 36 minutes in back-to-back games now. He's attempted 33 combined shots. And Tim Hardaway relies solely on scoring to propel his fantasy numbers, and there's a very good chance against Boston that he'll fall flat. So that's an easy spot to differentiate, and I feel like that's going to be the case for most of these spots.
I completely agree. If you know going in that Tim Hardaway is 33% owned and Emmanuel Mudiay is 7%, there is a very, very clear path of what you should be doing with that information.
This slate is way less about which players you're targeting, and it's way less about which players you're targeting than how you're playing the slate, like than how you're coming to those players.
It's so much more about which players you're not playing.
Right.
Yeah. Like if I don't need to be with the field at 40% of a guy that doesn't really have a fantastic ceiling and is priced exactly where he should be. He's receiving no additional information or any additional minutes. There hasn't been a change in status. Like, that's the type of chalk that scares me.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Especially with so many guys up in the air on these teams, like for Phoenix or New York, where the output could come from anywhere. For it to cut
right.
How shocked would you be if Tim Hardaway shot 4 for 21 tonight? Not at all.
You wouldn't be shocked at all. Go with some Kevin Knox instead if you want to. Yeah. By the way, that is one ugly dude.
I have no idea what he looks like.
Oh man, it's unfortunate, but it's really the same concept throughout. Alonzo Trier got no run last game, shot 0 for 4. It's right now Fizdale is, and he even said this earlier in the year, like he wanted Mudiay to be the guy, and Mudiay's starting to be that guy. He's had a great game and a decent game over his last 2 with Burke out, and now he's going to get another opportunity to play. So, and play big minutes. So I like this, and if it blows out, things could change dramatically, and then maybe Trier is the guy who comes in and plays big minutes off the bench because they're getting smoked. But that's still yet to be seen. It's still up in the air.
Other chalk coming from New York, at least on the DK side, Cantor 20%, Vonleh 21%, Mario Hezonja at 3,200, 14%.
Cantor's the type of guy that I have, like, I would rather play Cantor over Hardaway. I just would.
Yeah.
Now
it's so much safer.
Right. Now the one difference there, excuse me, is that you have Clint Capella. As we've talked about, Rudy Gobert has been getting crushed in pick and roll defense, and Capella's price came down because of the matchup. You have Yusuf Nurkic against Phoenix. You have DeAndre Ayton at a dirt cheap price point. I'll even throw Al Horford into the mix. You have all of those guys. That is the one thing that keeps Cantor from being, the guy that you really like. But I still prefer him over Hardaway because I think, his ceiling and his floor are higher than Hardaway's.
Completely agree with you. We're on the exact same page there. Now, Cantor 7,100 on FanDuel is a bit less appealing, but being able to play multiple centers on DraftKings changes that equation quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, 71, it's not that bad. I mean, what, $300 more than he is on, what's he out on DraftKings? 6,800?
Yeah. But, like,
it's not that bad.
Horford's $200 cheaper. DeAndre Ayton is $400 cheaper. Those two guys are, like, there's no questioning how long they'll be on the floor from, like, a status perspective. So Cantor could very easily get 20 minutes here, and they play Mitchell Robinson for as many minutes as he can handle because this game is just over.
Yep. Oh, by the way, DeAndre Ayton, it looks like he's no longer getting that fourth quarter blowout run. That's no longer guaranteed.
Yeah.
Earlier in the season, we were seeing that where he'd play 7 minutes in the fourth, no matter what the score was. That's not the case anymore. So just keep that in mind. DeAndre Ayton's floor, as a result, is now lower than it was.
Yep. I don't have anything else on this game.
No, and that would actually be a nice segue into the Phoenix-Portland game.
Yeah, let's do it. Portland Trailblazers and Phoenix Suns. 114.75 implied total for the Blazers, 101.75 for the Suns. This is dreadful. We'll start on the Portland side. Dame Lillard, 10-5 on FanDuel, 10-1 on DK. We're showing 38% expected ownership for Lillard on FanDuel, and I got 10. So I think that'll be a pretty controversial opinion.
Yeah, I would agree with that. We have him at 23% on DraftKings.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I think that the simplest explanation is on FanDuel, you have to play 2 point guards. Yeah. You don't on DraftKings. And Harden is only $700 more than Lillard.
Yep.
Kyrie Irving is $1,100 less than Lillard. So that he's kind of in no man's land.
Yeah.
Which I'm telling you right now, I'm absolutely going to have a lot of Damian Lillard. I just don't know how I'm getting away from that because of that reason. Look, if Damian Lillard is expected to be significantly less popular than Irving and Harden, and by significantly less popular, I mean given the 3-game slate, and he's facing Phoenix, and he's going to be up against the likes of he's going to be going up against the likes of DeAnthony Melton and Elia Kobo and whoever,
Troy Daniels, and Jamal Crawford. Fuck this team.
Yeah, I'm hoping that CJ McCollum plays, because if he doesn't, then everyone's just going to pile on Lillard. He's going to be like 70% owned. I hope McCollum does play so I can run some Lillard out there, and maybe McCollum tweaks it again in the first quarter and it comes out. But to me, Lillard, despite the obvious blowout concerns, which is also in a game with Irving, with the Boston-New York game, Lillard is just in such a favorable spot that there's no way I'm only going to play a few percent of him. There's no way I can do it.
Yeah, I totally get it. The price points on DraftKings make it a little bit easier to get to him. Yeah. He's 1,500 more expensive than Kyrie on FanDuel.
No, look, I totally get it. I guess still at the same time, I don't even know how much. I don't even know how much that matters to me. Just because the whole slate, the way that it's laid out. I Lillard, if he's going to be, what do you actually see? It's different on FanDuel because you said he's supposed to be what, 30% or something.
38.
So that's different, yeah. But we have him quite a bit lower than Irving and Harden on DraftKings, and if that's the case, I don't see how you're not,
Yeah,
I don't see how you're not interested.
What did I get of him on DraftKings when I ran the crunch? None. I didn't adjust anything or like adjust for ownership or anything, but he's just not popping up for me in this spot.
Right, but again, and that makes sense. But once again, it just feels I'm getting 45%. By the way.
Okay, what do you have him projected for?
Hold on.
Got to be in the 50s, right?
48.
Yeah, so do I.
Okay, but that's probably because I probably have I have 35% Harden on the initial crunch. Okay, I didn't really get much Irving here. I have Irving projected quite a bit lower than Lillard here.
Yeah, I have him I have him a point lower.
Okay, I'm at 42.
Okay,
seems a bit low.
Question in chat: why do you think it's going to be a blowout when the Knicks beat them last time? Going back to Celtics Knicks, because the line is 13.
Yeah,
I don't care about the last game at all.
The Knicks, the one game to me doesn't mean anything. Boston was in complete turmoil. That was when Boston was just looking terrible. They actually look a lot better lately. They've won 3 straight. They've come into, not to say that this means a whole lot, but it does actually. They went into Minnesota. The Timberwolves have been playing excellent. They beat the Timberwolves. They went into New Orleans, beat the Pelicans. They're playing much better basketball lately, and I think that this game, put it this way, even though they lost to the Knicks, I mean, take his question and reverse it. Are you to tell me that it makes more sense to not project this game to be a blowout because they lost at one game to the Knicks? Are you saying that it makes more sense to say no, this game should remain close? Because to me, that's an even crazier. That's a more crazier assumption.
Yeah, I have no interest in thinking the Knicks stay in this game based on the line and the two teams. Now, it can happen. I mean, if I'm playing 150 lineups, I'm kind of trying to account for everything. That game being close makes me like guys like Moutier and Cantor even more, but I assume that it won't be close based on the line.
You can only go off of so much, man. You can only take the information you have at your disposal and go off of that. And overall, Boston is a much better basketball team than the Knicks, and that's what it comes down to. When you begin to overthink it, you get yourself in trouble. Boston's a better coached team. They have more depth. They're fundamentally more sound. There's no reason to project this game to be close. Could it be close? Obviously, it could be close. Absolutely, it could be close. But that doesn't mean that I should be projecting the game to be a nail biter with 15 seconds left in the final quarter.
No, not so much. I don't expect this one to be either. All right, so we're on different pages here a little bit for Dame. What do you think about Chalk Yusuf Nurkic? 41.
Well, mind you, again, I'm talking DraftKings.
Yeah. I mean, even for DraftKings, he's not someone that I would likely have a ton of.
Fair enough. I love Yusuf Nurkic.
41% expected ownership on DK today.
Yep. I still like him.
I get it.
There's no reason I shouldn't, or you shouldn't. Like, in close games, again, he's still, like, Terry Stotts is giving him 30-plus minutes in close games. If that is the case, you've got a guy this season. Let me just see real quick. You've got a guy this season in Yusuf Nurkic who's averaging 1.34 fantasy points per minute. So, just put that at 30 to 33 minutes. You're talking 40 fantasy points, upwards of 45 fantasy points. And that's just the average based on his minutes played. Factor in the matchup, factor in Ayton and that team has struggled immensely to contain opposing centers this year. Other than the obvious blowout concern, which is something I'm not even really considering. By the way, that another question to go back to that previous question. Yeah, I think that game is a blowout or could be, but I'm not even really factoring it in because 2 of the 3 games are expected to be blowouts. So, what are you really going to do with that information? Not much. But yeah, Phoenix has been crushed by centers this year. I just think Nurkic is still way too cheap on DraftKings. I'd even consider him on FanDuel based on the lack of options.
Wait, you'll consider who on FanDuel? Lack of options.
Yusuf Nurkic.
Oh, yeah. I got 14%. We're projecting 20. So, I'm in that area. Capella is the guy that I'm heaviest on, but I guess we'll get to that.
Yeah, I mean, Capella is also in a good spot. Rudy Gobert struggle. Man, I'm so mad. NBA.com does not have play type data anymore. John Schumann, who runs their player or their NBA their stats stuff at NBA.com, said that he had spoke. I think it was Synergy, and that it was the feed and that it was broken. But really, really disappointing, man, because that stuff was just it helped. So if you knew how to use it, if you knew how to use the play type data, God, it was great. It was absolutely essential to daily research, and now it's gone.
Yeah.
You could real quick just go pop in and be like, okay, how is he doing in pick and roll defense, points per possession? How many possessions is he seeing against him per game in pick and roll defense? Because if you look at points per possession and it's huge, but then you see that that no one even runs it against him because he's very good at it. So the few times they have, it succeeded, but that's a very small sample. Yeah, you could use it different ways, but you can't get that anymore. You can't. It was such valuable information. I'm very upset it's gone.
Me too. I looked at it every single day.
Every day, yeah.
You have a choice.
For my articles, there wasn't a day I didn't use play type data.
Right.
And now it's gone. And it's been gone for a month now.
Yeah, it's a bummer. Evan Turner is a guy standing out for me. I got 36%. It's the second most exposure to someone on Portland. He's 4,600 on FanDuel. 4,600 on FanDuel, 4,200 on DK. I mean, he's going to be really chalky if CJ is out.
Oh my God, he'll be the highest owned player on the slate.
But I like him either way, just kind of, handling the ball in the second unit and roasting Phoenix, who is basically like a walking second and third unit.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a D-League team right now, man.
Yeah, they're missing two of the, 2 players that have a pulse.
Right. It's really bad. It's seriously, it's awful.
Yeah.
If the biggest concern I have, bear with me here, if this game does blow out, and again, look, let's be real, it should. I don't like predicting blowouts. I don't, but this game, if it stays close, it would take a heroic effort by somebody on Phoenix, and I just don't know who that's going to be. Like Josh Jackson's going to have a huge game. If I'm playing Evan Turner, I'm playing more than one Phoenix starter. Here is why. Evan Turner is the 6th man. He's the first man off the bench.
Yeah.
In blowouts, that player is the first player to lose minutes.
Yep.
In a blowout, because they will get their first half rotation and they will play significant minutes. And then in the second half, they won't come in until, 6, 7 minutes, maybe 8 minutes into the third quarter. And then they won't play more than a couple minutes into the fourth. Instead of closing out a game, as Turner did last game against the Mavs, which they brought within a few points, what he'll do is he'll be out, and then he'll lose probably 8 minutes right off the top. So the 6th man in a blowout loses more minutes than any other player in the starting lineup because of that.
It's a good point. A really good point. I like that take a lot.
It's just something to consider. We used to see it all the time with like the Jamal Crawfords and stuff.
Yeah.
People, you think in a blowout that they benefit. No, they're viewed as a starter in the sense of if it's a blowout, get them off the court. They play 30 minutes a game anyway, or upwards of 30 minutes. So I would just want to get Phoenix starters into the lineup, because for Evan Turner to get, significant run, it would need like 22 minutes he played in that blowout loss to Milwaukee. It's just something to consider.
I like it. We have a hot take in YouTube. DeAnthony Melton for 50 fantasy points. Lock it in. DeAnthony Melton scores 50 fantasy points. I quit. I don't even think that's a feasible possibility tonight.
Watch, he goes for 60. I mean, come on.
How many minutes would he have to play for you to be like, I think that he can get to 50?
Yeah.
50?
No, come on. Now, just to be clear, I'm going to have some Melton in my lineups. I will. There's no question I'm going to have a decent amount, probably a good amount. I'm not projecting him. What's that?
People are crazy.
Yeah, I'm not going to be projecting him for 50 though. But obviously wouldn't be surprised if he started over Okobo.
No,
he started the second half of the last game.
What makes you think the Blazers will be ready to play the terrible Suns? They were probably all at the club until 2 because they have an easy game. Human nature. The Blazers aren't going to the... First of all, this particular Blazers team, Dame, CJ, not those type of people, first and foremost. I don't think they're going to the club in Portland before a home game. They're probably at their house.
I think he's trolling. That's got to be trolling.
I don't know. Yeah, they're not... I don't get the sense that they're going to be going out to the clubs on a Wednesday night while they're home.
Yeah,
that's a road game shit. That's road game shit.
Right. Yeah, that's Miami or LA or New York.
Yeah.
Just
what's the titty bar scene in Portland like? A lot of hairy granola eating women.
You just insulted somebody.
I didn't insult. Look, I was in Portland recently. There's a specific vibe of people out there.
Sure. Yeah. Hipsters. The moment you start trying to factor in intangibles with your own logic, that's the moment you get yourself into some trouble. If your thought process is this game stays close because I think that Portland looks at this as a layup win, and I think that they were probably out partying, and I think that they're probably not prepared because I think that I could get into all of their heads prior to a home game with the Phoenix Suns, you might want to rethink that a little bit. If you wanted to use that when they go down the South Beach, that's actually something we've seen. That's something we've seen affect play. But why are we acting like a normal home game, one of the 41 they play each season and have been doing so for how many years, is different than anything else? Are we saying that Phoenix is the first bad team that Portland's played with this roster?
Portland has one of the most sound structures in the game. Dame Lillard is a consummate professional. CJ McCollum, consummate professional. It's
not even worth talking about.
No, from the top down, they are incredibly well run. Dame is one of the most well respected people in the league in terms of his work ethic.
Yeah. Although if I was gonna party, I'd want it to be with Yusuf Nurkic's dad.
Agreed.
That'd be awesome.
I bet Nick Stauskas has some fun when he's out.
Saucy. He probably does.
What do you want? Do you have anything else from Portland?
No, I mean Nurkic and Lillard. Again, Evan Turner, but I'd want, if I'm playing any of these guys, but I think Turner is more so important to pair with somebody on the other team because he would lose the most minutes. But other than that, now, Al-Farouq Aminu is a 3-and-D type of guy. He's in play because it's a 3-game slate. No problem with Aminu here. I don't like him, but once again, it's the same thing as a lot of these players. Whether it's Aminu or Noah Vonleh, how much difference does it really make? And the last one here is Rashawn Holmes. Rashawn Holmes has played well late. Oh, I'm sorry. We're not at Portland yet. So
let's talk about Phoenix then. Let's talk about Rashawn Holmes. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just look. Rashawn Holmes is not a particularly great basketball player, but the reason he's in the league, the reason he stuck around with the Sixers for a little while, and the reason he's getting some run in Phoenix is because he's a hustle guy. He crashes the boards, he crashes the offensive boards. He'll chase down shots to get some blocks. He's very active. He has active hands, and he plays hard for every second he's on the court. Well, you know what? For a cheap guy, I don't mind that. He's like the poor man's Kenneth Faried when Kenneth Faried was actually somebody, and he's cheap enough to consider here. You look at somebody like Holmes, and that number one, he's never going to be shooting from outside and knocking down threes, but he's shooting 70% from the rim this year. 70% of his shots are coming from the rim, so he can actually get some production there. He should get some run in a blowout, and play at least 22 minutes or somewhere around that. And he's the type of guy again that hustles and puts in the work. And I like those type of guys. Right this year, he's averaging 5 offensive rebounds per 36. That's a nice number.
I don't have a problem with him on DraftKings. He's a tough sell on FanDuel. He's 5,100.
Yeah, that's a bit much.
I can't. That one I can't get to.
But again, I'm just trying to dig deeper here because I think Holmes in a close game probably plays 20 minutes in a blowout. He might be locked into like 22, 24 regardless at this point.
Yeah. Would you rather have Noah Vonleh or Rashawn Holmes on FanDuel? They're separated by $100 and Holmes is more expensive.
Well, yeah, obviously Vonleh on FanDuel.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with Holmes on DK. I think that would be an interesting way to go, especially if his ownership really is 4% like we have it right now.
Right. Exactly.
Ayton chalky. Well, not chalky, but 30%. Josh Jackson, 30%. Talk me off of Josh Jackson because I've got a ton. Or don't and make me feel better. I'll go either direction, really.
You have to play some Josh Jackson. That's it.
Define some because he's my highest exposed power forward right now.
How much do you have?
Numbers are relative.
What do you have? 60%?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So he hit your cap.
Yeah, he did.
I mean, that it's pretty steep because he's not. How much is he priced on DraftKings or FanDuel? He's 55.
Yeah, he's 5,500 on FanDuel, 54 on DK.
Well, just looking at power forward on FanDuel, it does make sense.
Slate, man. Oh my god,
it's bad. Yeah, you're gonna have to play some because you really don't have you don't have much recourse here. Like you're going Vonleh or Tucker or Favors or Rashawn Holmes or Kevin Knox or Marcus Morris or Al-Farouq Aminu. I guess Josh Jackson's probably makes the most sense.
He's played 273 minutes in the past 30 days. He scored 274 fantasy points. So, if you think he plays 30 minutes, he's a 30 fantasy point guy, based on that metric. In my model, he's right there too, so I don't think that it's a stretch to look that direction. If that's the case at 5,500, it's really hard to not see him as the pretty clear best value play at power forward on the slate.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but that's probably the case. He's played 203 minutes with Booker and Warren off the court this year. The good thing he has a 28.5% usage rate.
Don't tell me the bad thing.
The bad thing is he has 0.83 fantasy points per minute and an 18% assist rate.
Yeah.
So the expanded volume has not exactly done much for his per minute production, but you're going to have to bite the bullet here.
I know. I don't like it.
I do think Ayton too. I prefer Nurkic over Ayton. At a very similar price point on DraftKings. On FanDuel, it's a different story where they're separated by $1,800. On DraftKings, Nurkic is the clear play.
Yeah.
But on FanDuel, that's certainly different. But DraftKings, I prefer Nurkic. Ayton, the fact that he's not getting that guaranteed run in blowouts anymore is going to hurt him quite a bit. But
Very
he's still
relevant.
cheap. Yeah, very. He's still cheap enough. He's definitely not a core play of mine. I have Nurkic and Capella and possibly Horford over him, but he's in play. And then aside from that, just in terms of what are we doing with this Suns team, we talked about Holmes, Josh Jackson. I don't love it, but I agree with you. I'm definitely going to have a lot. And then Jamal Crawford is another guy who is going. If play Jamal Crawford, if he would be a guy that if you wanted to pair somebody cheap with Evan Turner, like Jamal Crawford could play 28 minutes in a close game or so. He'll lose minutes immediately in a blowout. And depending on who starts for Phoenix at point guard is the one I'll have. If Okobo starts again, I'll probably go back to him. I know it sounds counterintuitive from a 3-game slate, but if he starts again, that concerns me that Kokoskov was just simply saying, all right, one game Melton looks better. We're getting crushed. I'll throw him out there, but that's not my plans for the future, and I want to continue to develop Okobo. That would be my interpretation there. If Melton starts, then it's kind of like I'm just playing who's played better recently.
I don't like this game at all. It's terrifying. Like
It's
if I told you that Ryan Anderson was the best value play by the time the night was over, like it's not even outlandish.
Yeah, it's outlandish.
It's probably outlandish. Flat minimum.
He's trash, dude.
He's
bad
washed.
as it gets.
He's washed.
And he's not playing more than 8 minutes a game.
Yeah, I know. I'm exaggerating. This whole team is a bunch of Ryan Andersons.
Yeah, they're not good. Dragon Bender's been a colossal bust.
Yeah, they dusted him off. Now.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. He's been a huge bust. Oh, Mikal Bridges.
Yeah, I guess we'll talk about it. I got 40% of him.
Yeah, that'll end well.
Again, it's this. I read off the small forwards earlier. They're all bad. They're all bad.
I'm coming up with around 35% on DraftKings too. On the initial, not because I want to, but it's pretty much because he's 4,100 and he's playing. The interesting thing about Bridges, ready? This is the very interesting thing about Bridges. They've lost by a lot of points over the last couple of games. In that Kings game, they lost by 17, but they were down by like 40 at one point. It was never competitive at any point, right? He played 34 minutes in that game and 31 minutes in the game where they lost by 24 to the Lakers. So it looks, at least as of now, that Bridges is getting that blowout run. And that to me is something that has to stand out to you, because the additional minutes, especially coming in playing against the team's bench, is nice. Bridges played the final 16 minutes to close out that game. The final 16 minutes of that game, alongside Troy Daniels, DeAnthony Melton, Dragon Bender, and who else was out there? Oh, wow. This is I should have pointed this out. I actually forgot to even look at this. Okay, wow. Can that be? It is right. Elie Okobo played 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 minutes in the fourth quarter. DeAnthony Melton played 9 minutes in the fourth quarter, and 5 of those minutes played together. So it was basically an empty the bench type deal where you had Melton, Bender, Daniels, Bridges, and Okobo. So they played a little bit of minutes together towards the end of the game when nothing mattered, which is kind of interesting.
I don't love this team. I don't understand who to use. Nothing looks good. Nothing makes me comfortable. This feels like the perfect day to just simply rely on the data.
Yes and no. I really think that if you're on Fantasy Cruncher, you want to set groups
Oh yeah,
or set some restrictions. You don't want Jamal Crawford. Okay, Jamal Crawford will not get the minutes in a blowout. He played, let's see, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14 minutes in the first half. He was on pace to play around 28 minutes. He played 8 minutes in the third quarter, did not step on the court in the fourth quarter. Lost, all of that run right there. That's going to happen to guys. So just be careful. If you're playing, Dame and you're playing Nurkic in the same lineup and Evan Turner, then, Crawford is somebody that you could throw into that lineup. But the guys that will get some run and blowouts, it's looking like, Okobo will get some blowout run. Melton will get blowout run. Bridges will get some blowout run. Those guys, it doesn't really matter.
Nope.
Whether or not whether or not it's a blowout. But certain guys, whether it be Ayton or Ariza, Josh Jackson didn't play in the fourth quarter either. Although I wouldn't be surprised if he did. He didn't last game. Just keep all of that in mind. I do think it's very important for this slate.
You want to just close out on Jazz and Rockets?
Let's do it.
Utah Jazz 108.75 implied total. Rockets 106.75. It's the only game you should expect to stay close. Jazz prices look a lot better on DraftKings. Rockets prices look a lot better on FanDuel. We'll start on the Jazz side, where I got 0 Rudy Gobert on my first crunch. Now he is 8,300 on DK. That is a much, much different price point. There's not a lot for me in Utah outside of, and I hate saying it, Ricky Rubio, Jay Crowder, and potentially Derek Favors. So, what do you like from Utah tonight?
Yeah, Donovan Mitchell, just the guy's floor really doesn't do it for me, and his ceiling at this point is kind of underwhelming as well. I mentioned before the season started that if Mitchell doesn't continue to play as well or better than he did in his rookie year, Utah is really going to struggle. And we've seen Utah struggle quite a bit.
Yeah.
His VORP value over replacement player last year was 2.1. This year it's 0.1. No, some of these numbers I don't really buy into all that much, but we only have so much to go on when you're looking at individual production just on a quick, cursory look. Box plus minus was 1.1 last year. It's negative 1.1 this year. All of his numbers, offensive box plus minus, is at 0.0 this year. Win shares per 48 is cut in half. Everything is down. Everything is way worse. Although his usage is up by a little bit. Point being, I just don't know how much love I have for Mitchell here. I don't see me getting to him that often when you have Lillard and you have Irving and you have Harden and you have Nurkic and you have Capella. You have a bunch of mid-range guys as well that just fit better and make more sense to me. So will I have some Donovan Mitchell? Sure. I'll probably have 15, 20% because it's a very small slate. But I'm really not enthusiastic about it. And with Rubio, it's the same way. Should the game stay close? Yes. You should see. You should see Chris Paul on Mitchell, and then Ricky Rubio will probably see a bunch of Harden. So this actually is a more favorable spot for Rubio, in my opinion, than Donovan Mitchell, and I could see him having a decent game here.
Yeah, I have a lot of Rubio and essentially no Donovan Mitchell. So the stance that I'm taking tonight is basically fade the Jazz. And I have a lot of Harden. Capella, my most exposed center. Staying with the field on Paul. Good amount of Eric Gordon. Houston's just the team that I'm taking the most of for right now.
Makes sense.
And the prices are a little bit better on FanDuel.
You have a bunch of Eric Gordon, you said?
I do.
That's interesting.
Yeah, look, I am not super fond of that move whatsoever. But he's 5,100. He's the lowest price guy that I think is feasible tonight at shooting guard. So he amounts to what is a punt at shooting guard. on FanDuel today. He's 5,100. The only guy below him that's like trustworthy would be Jaylen Brown, who I don't exactly see as trustworthy in this particular day. And then it's Trier, Jamal Crawford, Troy Daniels, Kyle Korver. Like he's the lowest price guy of someone, and he's going to get 30 minutes.
I would rather roll the dice on Jamal Crawford than Eric Gordon. That's me personally. Hoping I get 30 minutes from Crawford. There's a good chance you don't, but then again, that's the case with literally 66% of the players on this slate.
Like they're only separated by $1,400.
Yeah, and Eric Gordon is just as capable of dropping 18 fantasy points as.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I guess my thing is, I just don't buy into Eric Gordon with Chris Paul active. There's just such a remarkable drop in production.
Yeah.
And if you were to, let's see, I'm just curious. So if we had Harden or Eric Gordon, we'll put Harden, and I guess actually I'd have to see how their minutes are staggered because he's playing 31 minutes a game. So Harden, Paul, I want to see how many minutes Harden, Paul, and Gordon have played on the court together this season.
Okay.
Be interesting to see. So on the season, Paul, Gordon, and Harden have played 79 minutes together. Gordon has a 14.5% usage rate. Chris Paul and Eric Gordon on the season with Harden off the court, because I haven't really paid too much attention to how they're staggering. I'm sure D'Antoni's doing pretty close to what he was doing last year. Harden and Paul have played, or Harden and Gordon, sorry, Paul and Gordon have played 214 minutes. I know.
You're like my grandmother, man.
It gets tough. Gordon has 29% usage in that case with Harden off the floor. So you're seeing the minutes kind of all over the place. And sure, Gordon's still going to get some work. But I guess I'm saying is I don't think shooting – I think shooting guard is throwing darts. And if you wanted to go with Gordon, no problem with that. But I do think you can go elsewhere to somebody like Crawford, hope the game stays remotely competitive. That's pretty much what it comes down to. But I don't blame you. It's a bad position.
Yeah, I got to play two. It's the toughest part of it all. Love Harden. That's no surprise. I don't really have like a hot take for that. But Capella on FanDuel, 9,100. He's $700 cheaper than Gobert. It's only $600 more expensive than Nurkic. The assumption of this game staying close certainly helps. I just have him as the number one play, and that's where I want to put my exposure. The fact that we're only projecting 16% ownership for him is really appealing for me.
Yes, sir. It is a very good spot, and I'm going to have plenty of Clint Capella.
There we go.
You have him working. You have him working quite a bit with Harden in the pick and roll, something we've seen a lot over the past several years. They're a good pairing together, just based on the fact that I expect to see plenty of usage for Harden, and I expect to see a whole lot of opportunity for Clint Capella against Rudy Gobert, who has been exposed in the pick and roll this year. There's no question, man. There's no question. I also will just throw out there that Rudy Gobert's price is at $8,300 on DraftKings. Yes, he is the most expensive center. However, he is also only $300 more than Capella. And my guess is that Capella is going to be significantly higher owned than Rudy Gobert. Let's see, what are we getting him now at?
24 and 17.
About 7% difference. But still, Rudy Gobert has been good enough to where I'm not opposed to him either, just on the face of he's a good player. This simple. He's a good player, number one. He can produce blocks, rebounds, and if he gives you 18, 20 points, whenever Rudy Gobert gives you 18 or 20 points, you're almost guaranteed for an excellent game.
Yeah.
Think about that. This game's the only game that's projected to be close, and he's not overpriced. That's the thought process. That's really all it comes down to. And just because both of these teams play at a slow pace doesn't really matter because almost all of the teams on this slate play at a slow pace. Can I just tell you that the pace of play before we close this out, the pace of play for these teams? Rockets 29th on the season, Jazz 21st, Celtics 22nd, Knicks 16th, Trailblazers 17th, and Suns 19th. There isn't a team in the top half of pace of play this year on this slate.
Yeah, every single one of the teams has a projected pace below 100 in my model. Knicks being at 99.9.
Yep.
It's just bad, man. It's so bad. And yet we went for an hour and 20.
We did, because there's something wrong with us.
Who do you want the most out of this entire game?
Well,
I guess ignoring Harden, right?
Yeah,
that's the obvious answer.
It's probably Capella.
Okay, I'm glad.
It's good, but I want to run back. I do like some Rudy Gobert here. The more I just look into it, I think Rudy Gobert has plenty of upside in this spot as well. So I'll throw Rudy Gobert into the mix as well. And then aside from that, trying to see if there's any value, just to make sure we're giving the viewers, to make sure we're not missing anything. Like PJ Tucker's a guy that's just playing monster minutes, but he's such a low fantasy point per minute producer that you just hope that he hits a couple threes and stumbles into some rebounds, which is doable.
Gary Clark at the flat minimum now that Daniel House is not on the team any longer is kind of relevant.
Yeah, I mean,
for today's slate only, not like in general.
Yeah, it's tough. So it's Capella here, I think, outside of Harden, who's the obvious top play.
Yeah, I agree. You have anything else?
No, we are doing 24 days of giveaways though on Awesemo.com.
We are indeed.
Yeah.
It's the Christmas season. It's the holiday season. I don't want to just say Christmas. I don't want to ruin it for everybody else.
No, but it's pretty cool. I mean, from now, we've been doing this all week up until December 24th, up until Christmas Eve. We're giving away something free to our loyal and beloved viewers each and every day.
We are.
And all you have to do to be entered into the drawing where we randomly select someone every single day leading up till Christmas Eve is like the video and leave a comment below. And that's all you have to do. Not in the chat. You got to leave it below so you refresh after it ends. But we're giving away premium NFL subscriptions rest of season going forward. We're giving away subscriptions galore, and then at the end it'll all come to a head where on Christmas Eve we're giving away one premium all access annual rest of the year subscription for free. And all you have to do is like the video, leave a comment below, leave whatever you'd like. Usually we have something catchy, but this slate's too bad. I can't even think of something decent.
Yeah.
Leave any comment you want. And then after that, you're entered to win. And you can do it for any video, by the way, any live stream. So if you watched the early bird, listen to the early bird, watched the strategy show, watched the deeper dive and live before lock, and you like and comment in all of those, you are entered 4 times in one day. And you have an opportunity to win. And all of those count for the all access premium at the end of this whole thing as well. So pretty cool.
Yeah, don't be afraid to do it in all of them. But yeah, just a comment. Just say hi. Tell us how much you like us. Tell us how much you don't like us. That's fine by me. I can appreciate the honesty. But it's the holiday season. Let's try to be positive here. Get the good vibes out in the air. And if you haven't signed up yet, NBA Strategy is the promo code. 7-day free trial. Gets you a 7-day trial to any package that we have, including packages that have Fantasy Cruncher attached. And if you've ever wanted to look into MMEing or, using an optimizer, Fantasy Cruncher is the best one in the business. So it won't cost you a single cent if you use the promo code NBA Strategy. One big word. I think we need to wrap this up and get away from this slate for a bit.
Yeah, that'd probably be a wise call.
Deep dive coming from Adam early this afternoon should be a doozy. Deeper dive going. You guys going to go at 6 tonight?
Is it an 8 p.m. start?
8 p.m. start.
Yeah, I guess we'll go at 6.
Okay. And then live before lock, myself, Eddie Fear, breaking down these 3 lovely games from 7 to 8. Plus, 3 fellas talking football tonight. Titans Jags. That'll be a doozy.
A real barn burner, huh?
It fits this basketball slate like a glove.
It sure does.
Oh
it sure
boy.
does.
Can't get enough of it. So much good content on this Thursday. At least we're churning it out. The slate might be bad, but the stuff that we do is just fantastic.
I would agree with that.
There you go. Lofty, anything else?
I think that's it, man. It's been fun.
Let's get out of here. Best of luck, everybody. We will be in, well, I'll be in Slack all day because I don't leave my office. Lofty, you probably live a real life.
Some days I'm forced to.
There you go. Best of luck, everybody. We're out of here.